All right. Hi, Sister Girls Book Club. We are back with another episode. I'm excited for this podcast episode because we have Deesha Dyer here. How are you doing today?
I am good. How are you? It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm good. I'm excited to be talking to you. A little nervous though, low key, because I'm like,
Oh gosh.
you be chilling with the people. Okay, so for people who don't know, you're a former White House social secretary under the Obama administration, and then you went
Mm-hmm.
on to be CEO of your own company, Hook and Fasten. But there were a
Mm-hmm.
lot of moments before that took you to that place. Like
Mm-hmm.
wake up one morning and say, you know what? That White House, I always wanted to work there. And then
Definitely not.
let me just go. But before we get into that, how are you doing today on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being your best event that you've ever played at the White House, one being like the one that you didn't like the most? How do you feel?
I would say today is probably about a 4 or 5 because I'm in book mode. So it's trying to balance book responsibilities with having to keep a day job. So I'm that balance today is a little off. So I'm trying to do my best. But I'd say a 5 if I had to say
Okay.
that. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So but that's still not bad considering that you're tired
No,
because you have a company, not because you're just like out here, struggling.
it's not bad. No, it's not bad. And it's also like it'll get better. It gets better, having this interview, having talking to, regular people that aren't day job people. I think, it gets better once you get the things you have to do out and you do fun stuff like this. So yeah.
Okay, so this is before your book is coming out. We got Undiplomatic. I got it, the release unreleased copy. So your book comes out
Yes.
this month, the 23rd. Are you excited or do you feel like nervous? Do you feel like, dang, that I'm gonna let the whole world in on like a lot of self talk in my head?
I think all the above. Honestly, I think that if I feel like if you're putting out a book, like nerves are going to be natural, like anxiety, all that. Like no matter if it's a fiction book or if I'm putting it all out there. So I feel like I'm nervous, but I'm also more excited to be honest with you because I completed it. So I think that's a milestone. We all need to
Yes.
celebrate Black women completing books and getting them out there. But I would say I'm more excited. And the nervous is natural. At this point though, I'm like, let's go.
So by reading your story, it honestly felt like I was watching a movie. Low key, I was like rooting for you to win. You got this. And then
I
there was a
love
time
that.
times I would reflect and be like, "Oh my god, I felt the exact same way." So how did you feel once
Mm.
the book was done and you could read the finished product, knowing that there were times where you were unsure of yourself, and now the world would have access to those vulnerable moments, especially
Mm.
of a person of your stature who worked in like the highest of the highest building that you could get.
I'm happy that you felt that way too. I think a lot of people are just like, I was rooting for you, and it's like cute. It's like a little like we're gonna make it to the end of this movie. She gonna make it. She did it, y'all. So I think I think there's a part of me that is very much, I'm not ever afraid of the truth. The truth does not scare me. It's the consequences of telling the truth. I think that
Yeah.
scare me. And I struggled for a long time with, is it the right thing to kind of put some of this stuff out there because people do see me as like this very strong, confident figure, which I think two things can be true. Like you can be, confident and strong in some places and feel very insecure and like weak in other places. And to me, that's just a balance, right? That's okay. We all have that. So I think that, the world's reaction to this, we're going to see, how they are. But I'm hoping that we are evolved a little bit as a society to be like, mental health things are real. Like let's normalize the conversation of feeling this way. And then let's normalize the conversation of like, how can we, contribute and to environments that don't make women feel this way or Black women feel this way. Like, what can we do? So I think that there's a part of me that is very, again, nervous. But I'm
Mhm.
also just like, you know, I'm I think hopefully you get this from me, but like I'm pretty chill. And so I think that when people meet me, they're like, oh, that's it. Like, that not that's it, but like it's not, and I'm like, no, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because then people don't
Yeah.
see me as like an authority figure. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But I think that, I'm hoping I normalize some conversations.
I feel like you have. The book is definitely normalized it. Okay, so let's take it back a little bit to Milton Hershey School. It was a
Oh
boarding school
yes.
for privileged kids. So while reading your
Mhm,
story, I couldn't help but want to hug little Deesha because I was like, dang, while the school had a lot of positives, they had some moments where I was just like, I don't know if that's like the right practice. They took a
mhm,
few ingredients like that form how a person views themselves, and it kind of like stifled. I feel like it could be.
mhm,
So did you ever think that your imposter syndrome while you were living it, did you ever
mhm.
link it to your childhood, particularly at your time during your time in Milton?
That's a great question. And no, I didn't link it because I just didn't have the maturity. I wasn't
Mhm,
mature enough and like, just as a person to know that, like your past affects your future. As silly as it
mhm,
sounds now at 46, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. But back then I
mhm,
didn't have the acumen to understand. So I don't think that, and I think I was also very much blinded by, I don't know if that's the right word, but like I was kind of snowed by like this great place that I was put in. I had great friends and it was a good environment for community, right?
mhm.
So I think that I didn't want to talk bad about it because you feel bad, but like, you know, so I never connected it until I really went to deep therapy and was like, oh, because it's not
That's
just
all.
the school, it's the fact that I also
Mhm.
wasn't raised with my family. And so it
Yeah.
was like I didn't really have my family unit, you know what I mean? Which when you grow up with, I didn't have I just like was
And you
like,
were
oh,
so
I'm taken out of that
little.
environment. I was so little. I was
Yeah.
little. I
I think
was
water
young when
school,
I
I think teenagers. I don't ever think like, oh, little kids
yeah.
go to school.
Well, the school actually is from kindergarten. So like it's
Mhm,
kindergarten through I just went there in 5th grade. And
mhm,
I think it was the right decision. Like I don't think it was a wrong decision for my mom to put me there. But I just think that like I was so young that I didn't
mhm,
understand what was happening. I didn't understand like like now I'm proud, I was always proud to be black, to be very clear. But like then I wasn't, I was trying to straighten my hair, using different makeup. So you know what I mean? I didn't know that like this wasn't for us. Like, you know what I mean? All these things that were like not using Vaseline or lotion. Like I was like, oh, that's
mhm,
okay. Like I didn't really like put it together, even though I did it at home. And those
mhm.
cultural things seem so small, but they kind of add up, because if the products and the whatever weren't there, the cultural acumen wasn't there, it was kind of saying like, does this really matter then? We're trying to, put you all in one bucket this way. So yeah, it was a thing. And I think that's what I'm probably scared most is like everybody from my high school being like, it was the greatest place. And it's like, yeah, it was great in some ways, but we have to be honest that it wasn't great in others. So yeah.
Yeah, I get that. And I was into like I was like thinking about I'm like, this is a great experience for a young person to have, but at the same time, it's
Hmm.
like you could see certain aspects of who a person is that could be stripped down, or even like you trying to just emulate things because you don't understand. Like you just want to fit in. As a kid, most people just want to fit in and they
A
want to have
hundred
friends.
percent.
They just want to have friends. They don't want to do anything. No, it's
Right,
like,
right, right,
oh,
right. And we
trying to
and
get
we had all that, right? We had all that, and I think the schools also changed. I remember I went there in the '80s, so
mhm,
it's gotten to a point where they have a lot more culture, a lot more Black teachers and house parents. But like it just wasn't like that when I went, and I think that we just have to be honest about environments like that. That was my experience. So yeah.
yeah. So let's flash forward a little bit, fast forward
Yes.
rather. So you're in your late 20s and you decide to give college another shot. You have a full-time job, two part-time jobs, and a side hustle in journalism. I was tired for you. Like I was just like, when does she sleep? When does she rest? When does she just look at the wall and
Mhm.
so what
Just look at the wall. Just look at the wall.
like, thinking like, dang, what am I doing? Like, you just like staring at the wall. You haven't got time to do that.
Mhm,
So what made
right.
you want to get your degree after leaving in your teens and coming back in your 20s when you had so many jobs, you also had a full life. Like you were in my mind, you were already going where you like in a direction where you wanted to go. Like what was the like why did you have the urge?
I love that question and that you're so observant too about it because I was tired, but I think also I had a lot more energy in my
Mhm.
20s than I did, you know what I mean, in my 30s and then my 40s. But energy were like not I just didn't like put it all together. I was like, I'm doing all these things I love to do. So I think that's what made it a difference too. Was like besides like my day job, which I didn't love it, but it was like providing stability. It wasn't terrible. And so I was doing hip hop stuff, I was doing social work stuff, I was doing all these things. And so I think for me, what eventually got me to want to go back to school is that I wanted to be a social worker. Like I wanted to say, like, have a degree in something that I could go help people, because I'd been helping people all of my life, but
Mhm.
I just didn't have the exposure to know that, like, even honestly what a social worker was. Like I didn't know those things. And so once I learned, like, oh, there's social workers and peer counselors and these things, I'm like, oh, like I can go work at this youth organization, which I was doing part-time. And then
Mhm.
like I would see the social workers like really interacting with the kids, really, trying to get them services or whatever. And I'm like, I have that hustle where like I'm always resources in my thing. So
Mhm.
that's why I went back, because somebody told me that I had to get a degree to be a social worker. And I was like, I do. Like I was really like, I like to help people. What you mean I need a degree? I didn't understand. I didn't understand. And so that's why I gave it another try. Because I finally, I think, found something that I wanted to do, and it came out of volunteering and having this part-time job, and that's why I went back. Yeah.
Okay, so you go back to school, and then out of nowhere, you're like, I get this. You like, I think you see it in an email or like AOL, like that was like a throwback, and you're like, oh, the White
Mhm,
House. When you see something like
mhm.
that, I don't know. It's one of those things. It really felt like I was reading a movie, and it's like, okay, she sees the White House email like about like you have this moment and you're just like, I should definitely apply. And even though you were scared and you were nervous
Crazy.
about doing it, or you would even say you had imposter syndrome, you always said, I'm still gonna chase it. So when you were doing it, do you remember like, sometimes like people have nostalgia and they can remember the Christmas exactly what it smelled like or what the can
Yes,
you
yes.
remember the moment, like, and how did that feel when you were actually applying to that? Do you remember that experience? Can you share what that was like?
Listen, yes, I mean, you're so vivid, and I like love your vibe, because I feel like that's what I wanted people to get from the book. And like, I am one of these nostalgia people where I do remember, like, and sometimes I'll bring up like something to somebody, like my husband or something, and he'll be like, I'm like, you don't got memories like that? Like I remember. And so for me, I was very much, if you remember, in 2007, 2009, there was this whole, I mean, the country was captivated by Barack Obama, and it wasn't, and that's before, like, obviously he got the presidency, but it was like, who is this? The way he was talking, things that he was saying, like, just, he had his black wife, his black children, he was from Southside Chicago. So it was all these things that it was just like, we have never seen this on a presidential scale. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm attracted to that because, like, wow, like he is going places, but I don't
Mhm.
know this man. I don't know what, I don't know. I don't, like, I had no idea how to get involved. And I think that, but there was something that was like, and I wish I could tell you what that something, but it was something that I was just like, I just want to try. Like, because I
Yeah.
feel like I have all these accolades. Like, I, have this big hip hop program, and I was in the community, and I was like, I
Mhm.
can lean on that stuff. I can't lean on education because I was just started school, but I can
Mhm.
lean on that. And like, he seems like the type of person that would go for that because he was a
Yeah.
community organizer. So I think
Mhm.
I remember exactly getting the email. I remember being at my gray cubicle. I remember just kept looking at the application, being like, clearly there's something in here that's going to disqualify me, whether it's my age or college or something else. Like and so I remember those moments, and I think that because the app, I'll be keeping 100, because the application was so easy. Like, it wasn't hard. It was like, fill out. It was like a job application, and then it was like your resume, and then
Mhm.
do an essay. And I was a writer, so doing an essay wasn't hard for me. So the hard part wasn't the application. The hard part was like getting over the fear that I would not be chosen.
Mhm.
And that honestly, and I didn't think I would be. So I was like, like, what's the
It's so
harm?
funny
You know what
because
I mean?
even if
So
you didn't feel like you were even when you didn't feel like you were, gonna be chosen, you always gave 1,000 because you literally carved out time between your 1,000 jobs,
I
and you were,
did.
like,
I did.
really focused and zoned in because you was just like, at night, I would get TV dinners, and I'd be sitting after work, and I'm like, but for somebody who did it's like, there had to be, like, an ounce was like, "What if?" And I think that's what I wanted to zone in on,
Mm,
like, I think a lot of times, especially as Black women, we might not believe that we can do it, but it's still like that little piece of hope, like that
yes.
faith of a mustard seed. Because I'm like, while you
Yes.
didn't believe that you could do it out loud, in your body, you were saying you were doing the opposite. Like you were a
Yes.
runner. You are not being
Mhm.
like all right, I'm gonna just halfway do it. You sat there and you really carved out that time and you made sure it was the best
Mm-hmm.
that you did, your best shot. And I think that I hope
100.
that people do that with that when they read. I mean, I don't want to put this in your head as the writer, but I'm like that you still gave it your best shot. Like, you know what I mean?
I
You felt like
did.
all
Mhm.
the odds were up there, but you're like, you know what? I'm gonna try anyway, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna do my.
yeah, 100. I think part of it was because I think part of it to me was it was the insecurity of I didn't have this education. I was 31 years old, and so
Mhm,
I was like, I need to make this pristine like I need to make this like no errors in this essay. I needed to make sense because I was like, I'm already in my head. I'm already discounted because of these, these the age, the education, all these things. And so I need to make sure the rest of the application is so
mhm,
on point. And so I made a point to carve out time because I was like, I don't if I don't get this, I wanted to be like for a good reason, not because I wasn't qualified. Maybe, you know what I mean? I needed so I needed to like make it so good that they were looked at that versus like that overshadowed the other
mhm,
things. And so that is really where to me where it came from. And I think that at the time I had such a good reputation in Philly. Like I had a good reputation in the community. So I kept thinking to myself, they're just gonna look and see like how much I've done and how much I've given. And like that's gonna push me over the finish line to give me the edge plus this essay over the 20-year-old Ivy Leagues. You know what I mean? Like I was like, that's all I got to lean on. That's me. Like I can't make nothing up. I can't like that's it. So I think that that's why I did it. And I think that we, especially as Black women, like I feel like like we have this inherent thing about us where we will give it our all. Like we will give it our all. Like because we're so used to so many obstacles and we're like and we also think of obstacles in our head like just from just oppression and systems that we've all been exposed to. So I think that for me I was like I'm going to make them see me, and if they still say no, that's okay. But they know I wrote a good essay. You know what I mean? Like I had a good interview. Like I made sure of that. So yeah.
all right, so you get there and you actually get to the
Mhm.
White House and you're in your
Yeah.
30s, early
Yeah.
30s.
Mhm.
So you're still in community college and you like with all of these younger kids that have like, they're like, I was smart and I have my path all let out to me. So during that time as an intern, you often talked about feeling like you didn't belong. So did people ever know the real you in the beginning, or were you just mirroring? And how
I
did
was
you get up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I was kind of in between the two. I
Mhm,
mean, I don't think I think that for me, I was 31 and so I didn't know how to be anyone else. I didn't know how to code switch. I didn't really know what these things meant. Again, I just wasn't 46 I understand, but I didn't understand that at 31. And so I think that while I was myself because I didn't know who else to be or how to change and be somebody else, I would try little things and I'm just like, I don't know. I also was kind of mirroring because I was just like, let me just do what's asked of me. Let me just button up. Like I'm like a very like loud person. And I was like, obviously I'm not gonna do that here. So like I kind of like switch some things off that I felt like weren't appropriate for the environment. Just I think that we all
mhm,
need to do that sometimes. But I think I did it more because I was like, I am an intern here. So also as an intern, you're not, like I'm not a full-time employee, so I shouldn't be like rah rah rah, but yes, I think I went between both of them to be honest with you. Like, yeah, I mean I went between both. Yeah.
okay. But then as we keep reading, you have a moment of clarity. You have many moments actually, but one in particular that stood out to me was when you decided that you weren't going to code switch and that you weren't going to take out your nose ring and
Mm-hmm.
you were not going to
Mm-hmm.
get a weave, you were your hair. So what gave you the
Mm-hmm.
confidence when the stakes were so high to say I'm not doing that? Was there a noticeable cost that you had to pay?
Yeah, what I'll say is number one, there was no one at the White House, the Obamas, there was never an issue with like
Mhm.
anything like that. It was
Yeah,
more the Washington socialite scene that was
yeah.
just a different beast. I think that the confidence really came from there's two things. I think one of them was, the Obamas hired me as a social secretary the way that I looked. And so like I didn't take out my nose ring for my interviews. Like you know what I mean? Like maybe I wore pearl earrings once in a while, but they both saw me, especially Mrs. Obama, as I moved to the East Wing in 2013 with hoop earrings all the time. So it was never so the fact that I, got promoted, and the fact that, I still, was respected or everything else by them and had a good working relationship with them, I was like, well, they don't care. Like they don't care. And they're the president and first lady. So like that gave me a confidence to be like, well, I don't care who else cares because that's who I work for, So it's kind of like, okay, rich person in Washington, like, so I think that I think my confidence came partially because I knew that I had their cosign because I did my job. You know what I mean? Like they were never worried about my image or like never, right? And so I think there was that. And I think the second thing came from I went home a lot to Philly and visited home a lot, and then also would volunteer here in DC. And I feel like I could not look at young people, Black people, whoever, and come back in the community as not myself. And
Yeah.
so like I did not understand. I still do not understand, to be honest with you, people who can do that. I just don't. And I'm not even saying they're wrong. I ain't making no judgment. But for me, it's just like, okay, I work at the White House during the day, that I'm going to like work with women who they just got out of prison. They were formerly incarcerated, trying to get their lives together. So what do I look like showing up as somebody else? Like, no, I'm going to show up as myself because they identify with me. And so it's like, oh, she's not bougie. She's not X, Y. Like, no, like and so that way we can relate to each other and have a relationship so we can help each other. I can help you or whatever. So I think that at the end of the day, I say all that to say, I don't think I could have slept at night or looked at myself in the mirror knowing that I was being somebody else. And I question people who can do that. And I'm like, the consequences, I understood. I understood that I would be, the reputation or what people would say about me behind my back or whatever people would say. And I just was like, I just have to deal with those consequences, which wasn't easy, but I just couldn't do it. And again, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal, but it's just like, it really was like, I don't understand how y'all just be changed. Like, like y'all be changing and be like, I'm down for Black people. And you'd be like, but like you do everything to run from being Black or like being in the community. Like you are running from that for what? Like just be yourself and still run. I don't know. I
got you. So you go from working full time for a real estate investment trust company to being a full intern. So you got to move out the city, your hometown. You got to everything goes. And then at one point, you go from like being this regular person to all of a sudden you're like on Air Force One. Like that. When I read that, I was like, oh, that happened in real life. Like Hannah Montana. You became like the Black Hannah Montana.
You said Hannah Montana. She said Hannah Montana. How
do you end up with Air Force One as an intern that quickly? But it's going to get a little tricky because it was super cool, but the travel wasn't a joyous occasion. And so how did travel into Fort Hood change you, and how did you manage your emotions and mental health during that time? Because a lot of juggling. It reminded me of the time when I think Mrs. Obama talked about the same day the gay marriage law was passed. Like they had attended a funeral. It was like the same exact day.
Yeah.
So how did you juggle that? Like how did you juggle that during your time?
Not very well. I think that Fort Hood, I went down because there was a shooting. There was a mass shooting there, and I was chosen to go down because part of my department was scheduling in advance, and part of that is you go ahead of the president and first lady, set everything up for them, and the department staff were all in Asia getting ready for the president to come there for a summit. And so there weren't a lot of staff members left to go to Fort Hood. And so they kind of put this, team together of different folks in the government sphere. And I went, and I think that for me, it was, I'll be honest. I think that it was extremely hard. I'm still reconciling with it, especially when it came to a lot of the things that, like stuff that happened, like with Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin and Freddie Gray. Like I was at the White House during those times. And I think, those are my hardest times because I was split between like, I want to be rah-rah and be in the streets and, whatever I need to do. and then being like, I'm in this ivory white building that like so far removed from some of the, some of the things that we were talking about. So I think that how I eventually learned to cope was by being in community here in DC, volunteering with folks, just really never losing sight of real people and real issues with me talking to them. At the White House, we dealt with real people and real issues all the time, but it was
Mhm.
like I organized events for the president or the first lady to have roundtables or other stuff like that. I was on the logistics end, right? I never really dealt with the people, like got in deep conversation. So I made sure that I kept that part of me that was so eager and so and so willing to be in community. So I never
Mhm.
forgot like those. I never forgot those feelings. Like, and I think
Mhm.
that was extremely hard because I had to find time to do it.
Mhm.
But it was important, and I would, on belonging, I would go to. I used to volunteer at this place called Carpenter Shelter here, and I would go volunteer at Carpenter Shelter and feed the houseless, and I sit down and play checkers with them, and we just had a good time. Like they didn't know at the White House. Like didn't nobody need to know. It wasn't for them to know. And
Mhm.
I felt like belong. I felt that's where I
Mhm.
needed to be. I would go into work and I also belonged there, but I felt I belonged with the people.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of maintained it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking about community, throughout your journey, you always had community from your job to
Mhm.
your at the real estate. Because I was like, they were so nice at the end. It was like
I
they just
know.
the best supporting
Mhm.
characters. Um, like you're like the people who helped mentor you while you were at the White House. So how important is it for people to build community, and what can they do if they feel like
Mm.
they don't have any? Because I know like
Mm.
now after 2020, I feel like community started to look really, really different,
It
and I feel like
did. It did. You're right.
figure it out even right now how to socialize and how to bring back that community feel. So I know it's very important for you, but
Mm.
how do you actually cultivate that these days, in your opinion?
Yeah, I would say I think you are exactly right. Like after
Mhm.
2020, I feel like we had to all learn how to socialize again, how to like be off screen. It's hard. So I think that I am just learning because with every phase of my life, it's a different community, right? It's a different like there's a community that had the job, and there was a community that had the White House,
Mhm.
but remains is always my community, like what it's the black folks. It's going like even in DC, like I could live in a nice place, but like I'm making sure that like I go to the markets, and I just need that. I need that for myself. And so I think that that's my natural built-in community all the time. But I think that now cultivating it is like just being real, like being yourself in spaces, like for instance, the author space. This is my first book. And I follow lots of black authors that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this person and I love this person and I would love to be in community with them, but like, you'll be sliding to people's DMs. That's not really the way to do it, right? And so I wrote my book and I started like, just posting stuff here and there. And I would have some of these people I look up to like liking it or commenting, whatever. And that led to me being like, oh, I would love to get together with you. And so like a bunch of authors and I got together I curated a dinner for Audre Lorde's 90th birthday, which is in February. And I invited people I didn't know. Some people I didn't know, some people I didn't know. And it was all Black women authors that are either have come out with books or coming out with books. And
Mhm.
so I gathered us all. Some of them didn't know each other. That's what I do. I'm a convener. So like out of that, I've gotten these other good friends. But I think that just start showing up to spaces too. Like
Mhm.
I know people don't like Eventbrite as overwhelming, but like Eventbrite will have things like a floral workshop or, a writing thing. And it's intimidating to go there by yourself. I understand. But when you go, you meet other like-minded people where you can just start organic conversation. So that's how I cultivate it now. But at 46, it's hard because we don't have kids. Everybody got kids. And so it's just like, oh, we're going somewhere with your children. Okay. I mean, sometimes I'm like, yeah, we don't have kids for a reason. But like it's just like, but that's the new phase of life. You just gotta adjust.
Yeah, I like that. So, during your time as social secretary for the White House, you were super intentional about showcasing Black culture. One story in
Mm-hmm.
particular is making a call to have the Black choir sing Total Praise. That's
Yeah.
super. That's so intentional. I'm like, being a Black girl from
Mhm.
Brooklyn who was raised in the church. I love that song. Like, as soon
You
as you hear
already
it, it's like,
know. You already
yes,
know. You already know.
was visiting. So how did you maintain the balance of knowing when to go all in with the Black culture or when to sprinkle the Black culture around? And was that ever questioned?
I love that. And by the way, my church that I love is in Brooklyn. But anyways, but what I would say is I was very lucky because I had President and Mrs. Obama at the helm. And so they are Black culture. Like they were just as, eager and as like, intentional about what they did. So they were so intentional that it kind of spilled over to us. And so I think that when Mrs. Obama was like, she wants to open up the White House and she wants to host everybody and she wants to make sure we have arts and music and stuff. I took the cue from her as like the permission slip. Like, okay, I got the permission slip to do what I already do. You know what I mean? So for me, it was never like I just was like, I want to take the mystique out of this White House. Like I want to take the mystique away from like only the top glee clubs perform for the Pope and only, you know what I mean? It was like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're lovely. And like, yes, they're great musicians or whatever. It wasn't taken away from them. But I just, in my head, I'm so detail focused that I was like, in my head, I'm like, how amazing is it for me to go down the street from the White House to St. Augustine's, one of the oldest Black Catholic parishes in the US, and
Mm-hmm.
like had them sing, and they've sung for lots of other stuff, you know what I mean? But I think that they were also, a lot of them were older, like older than me. So I was, 47, if I'm 46, or at least in their 50s or 60s. And I was like, how amazing, these Black Catholics, all of their life. And now they get
Mm-hmm.
to sing for the Pope and they get to sing Total Praise, a song that I knew if any Black person that most likely grew up in the church, or even if you didn't grow up in the church, you play it and you know those amens. They just go on forever and ever, ever at the end. And I was like, how amazing is it for somebody to turn this on, be a Black person and hear that? And like, to me, like I still get chills because I can't even describe, like, that's the kind of intention I walked into it with. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
like with everything I did, I was like, okay, well, we can get a Black violinist. It wasn't just gospel choirs. I was like, let's find a way to also not be like, we're doing a sports events. Let's have Black athletes. No, let's have like Black sports agents or Black doctors that treat the athletes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's like, bring us up in here. So I think that when I got to the White House, I was very much like, I'm not opening the door. I'm just taking it off the hinges and like, everybody come in. Like the door is in the trash. Like, everybody
Yeah.
come in. We ain't shutting this door. We ain't shutting this door. It's off the hinges. Like, we sometimes we have some riffraff, sometimes we did. So, yeah.
That is so interesting. Like the stories that probably
Mm-hmm.
you have about that time. Okay, so during that
The
same time,
story.
the Pope during the same time the Pope Francis visit, you were going through a major personal issue. So thinking back to how focused you were on your work, right?
Mhm,
Knowing what you know now, would you have done everything the same? And also, can you speak to like other Black women who would probably do the same exact thing because they have
mhm,
their, it could be a different issue, but like working through it and just saying, I'm gonna
mhm,
do it and do it and never really taking the time
mhm,
off. So
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually chapter 7, which is the most pivotal chapter in there, and I'll let everybody read, kind of what the personal issue that she's referring to. But I would not do things the same at all. Um, I put my job above my
Mhm,
health.
mhm,
And a lot of us do that because we are afraid of being seen as weak. We are afraid that people will say that we can't do our job. We don't know how to handle pressure. We don't know
mhm,
how to handle sickness. When
mhm,
your body gets sick or when something happens to your body, a lot of times it's out of your control. Like church, we do not control the day nor the hour that things
mhm,
start to go awry. And so,
mhm,
for me, what I would say is it's hard for me to be in the position and give advice because I understand that people have different levels of income. They have different levels of responsibilities. And so I'm always very easy about giving advice that's going to be like, make sure you put yourself first or whatever, because I want to be also respectful that I have privilege now that I could say that. And so I think that what I will say though is that we have to take care of our bodies and our minds. And what that means is that like you have to either have a team of people. Like I was very lucky to have a team that could say, hey, I need to cut back on some things, and they kind of filled in for me. But I was able to do that and still put my health above everything else because I was afraid. I think that when your body says no, when something happens to you, you have to listen. Like it can be a life or death situation. Thankfully for me, it wasn't that extreme, but it can be, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, and whether it's right now or whether it's later, right? And so I think that what I would say is get a team of people you can trust and depend on, that if something happens where you have to check out, you can at least delegate some responsibilities to somebody else, right? I think that also you have to have faith that, like, if something happens with you where you have to leave a job, like, there's no shame in unemployment. There's no shame in WIC. Like, I don't have no shame for none of that stuff. Like, I don't. Like, so if you have to take that, if that's what you have to do, it's okay. That's why you pay into it, because when you need it, it's time. And so I think that I would watch putting jobs and stuff over our health and be very careful about that, because if you look at the sisters dying around us, and the heart disease and the diabetes, I have diabetes, I have, I have type 2 diabetes, and I have high blood pressure, and all of that I did not have before. and so just mind yourself. And so I would say, like, get a team, get therapy, use whatever services are at the job. People don't be using them services, a lifeline and all that stuff. Use them people's services, like, for whatever you need, to be well, because we need you here. And once you're in the hospital, or once something happens, like, you're out of not only your job, but like other things, what I mean? You're out of commission to be a parent or to be a whatever. And so then it's worse, so imposter syndrome really did a number on me with that one. Because I was so afraid of, like, this being the biggest week of my career and me going down, and then being like, we knew she couldn't do it. But now I don't care if people say that. Okay, what if you do say that? What happens after that? Do you just think I can't do it?
That's
okay.
True.
Okay. You know what I mean? Like, what comes next? Like, all right, just your gossip. Like, your gossip. I'm over here fighting for my life, and you gonna like you get I got a perspective after that happened, that I was like, we're done. Yeah.
I hope that people, especially Black women, young Black women, especially like graduation season is coming up, that they read the book and understand, like, to put yourself first, because it's not like gossip and how other people view you. Like, it's so at the bottom of the list. You know what I mean?
At the bottom, girl, at the bottom. And like, and that's why I think angry when we're not as truthful as I was in this book. Like, there are people, like, again, I love us, but there are Black people walking around being like, put your head down, work hard, push through it. And it's just like, yes, that advice is necessary, but y'all are basically making these robots where, like, there's no feeling. And then these girls or men, whoever, they get older and they're just like, I wish I would have never. But, like, we got to stop giving bad advice. Like, stop giving bad advice to these people and being like, like, you got to, I went through it, so do you. No, like, no, that's not what our ancestors did. And that's not what we should do. You know what I mean? Like, no. So, yeah.
So in your story, like, we see chapter by chapter. We don't know the years, the months, or how it looks. So how long did it actually take you to see yourself for who you are, and not believe, like, the negative thoughts that will pop in your mind? Because I'm like, her biggest adversary or her biggest enemy is her own mind. And that's most of us. I would say probably, like,
I love you for that.
Opponent is ourselves, right? Because every time you would be so many strides and you would be like, I still have to prove myself. I'm like, to who? The president. You did a great job. Like, girl.
Yes. I would.
This girl will come through the book, because I'm like, girl, I just wanted to shake you so bad, because I'm like, you are.
Everybody does. Everybody says that. They're like, Deesha.
And you was like, yeah, I feel like I gotta prove myself. And I was like, again?
Yeah.
I think
yes. That's the thing. And I think that for me, I think all that you just said is, like, it's the truth, because I did not. I was so embedded in, like, right now, that I didn't even think about my past being a root of some of these things. And when you have a root grows, and it grows into a tree, and then the tree has branches that they shed and they come back, they shed and they come back. So if you don't cut these roots and dig them up, you know what I mean? It's always going to come back and shed and come back. So there were times, just like a season. There were times when the leaves would die and the tree would look dead, and I'd be like, oh, I'm feeling great, yes. And then something happened. Here comes spring, and it'd be like, oh, here goes it again. Like, so something would flare it back up, right? So I think that and because trees are pretty and things look pretty, it was all like a mask, right? So I think I had to dig up the roots. And I feel like I'm 46 right now. I would say about 40 years old. I would say, that's when it kind of hit me.
Mhm.
The chapter 7 that hit me a little bit, but I think that kind of woke me up a lot. But I think that after that was when I was just like, Deesha, like, you've done these impeccable things. You're a
Mhm.
real person, like, you know what I mean? But that trickery of the mind is real. And I on purpose, you have the galley, so you don't have the intro part where I tell people like I am at a point where I do know that I'm valued. I do know that I deserve, but I know that's not where most people are, which is why I
Yeah.
didn't like that's why in the story I'm like, I don't want people reading my words of like, she's so healed. I am not. I am more flawed. You know what I mean? I was like, I want to take you through it with me so you can see that this was an evolution. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to meet you at the heal place because that's not where you are. And so I think that, it took me a long time, but I will tell you, and I'm so thankful that I got here. I'm so thankful because I can be honest and truthful with people. Like, it wasn't my work. My work was impeccable. It was me. It wasn't everybody telling me you're not great, you're not whatever. It was me,
Mhm.
and so, we meet, and I'm sure you probably encounter this with young women too. We meet so many young women. I'm
My age,
10,
me, you be like, "What?"
yeah, 10 or 11 years old though,
Uh-huh.
who are like,
Little.
I'm not smart. And
Mhm.
you be like,
What
you
you
know what I
mean?
mean? Like, yeah. So I'm talking about young under 19. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You be like, you just graduated from so and so, yada yada yada, or like you in like 7th grade. Like, what is happening? Like, where did this come from? Where did this
Yeah.
start? And so it doesn't just start when we get adults. Like the young women are going through this. And I'm
Mhm.
like, all these affirmations, all this stuff is not working. So we need to like go back and figure out where the root of this started. And they're going to encounter systems of oppression that help keep that alive. But there's
Mhm.
something going on where like a 10-year-old like don't think she's smart, don't think she's deserving. Like what? Like,
Yeah, that's
and a lot of
wild.
this, I'll be honest, is their parents who have not healed themselves. And so it's like they see their parents always putting themselves down. The next thing you know, here go the child putting themselves down. It's just like, so yeah,
I
we got
got
on a
you because
tangent.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, my age, younger, older, it's like everyone has like this mindset a lot of times, like, well, they'll take themselves out the game before you even see like anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, well, I don't know. It's almost like you want it, but then it's like 55 things you'll create in your mind and be like, well, I can't have it. And I'm just like, that's so
Mm-hmm.
messed up because especially if you're a black woman, you have to be at the top of your game anyway, just
Yes,
off the so it's like you are
off the bat.
overqualified half the time. Like you are overqualified know more than most people in the room because you have to know
Yeah.
more than people in the
Mhm,
room.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I think that's just it's one of those things.
It's
So
one of
your
those
last
things too. Yeah, it's
yeah,
one of those things. Yeah,
that you
yeah.
want to get over, but it's like, dang, it's something is like, how do we get to that? Like, how do we not even have a kid at 10 even say that? Because that's very like it's hurtful too, because it's like you don't even see it.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Right,
it's hurtful.
right. Because you
Like,
see them, like you see them, like
yeah,
you be like,
you
and like you
are.
just be like looking at them, like you want,
Mhm,
like there's like it makes me in a clown. I'm a crier, so
mhm,
when I go speak, I always have a line. I usually do like private hours right after we're all asked the organizers for a room to meet with people individually because there's a lot
mhm,
of people who are shy or they go and ask questions in front of people, especially young people like middle
mhm,
school, high school. And I always have a line. When I tell you that I have a line, and it's always these girls come in every single time. This is not without fail, and one of them starts to cry, like starts
yeah,
to cry. They feel so. This just happened at the Apple. We did the Apple event here in DC. A young woman on the hill just started to cry in front of, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And she's just like, I'm not, I feel like I'm not worthy of anything. I'm not worth it. And it breaks me
mhm,
so hard. So I'm just like, I see like I need you to get there quicker than I did. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, hope this book helps them get a little closer than like,
yeah,
and it breaks my heart. It breaks me in half. Like I'm just like, and then I start crying and I'm just like, and they're looking at me like, why are you crying? I'm like, because I'm so emotional because like I
yeah,
love us so much. And I hate that like any of us think that we are less. Like,
unless
no, we are the flyest of the fly. You kidding me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we
Well, how
are.
does that
But
feel? How
like
does that
these
feel when you have
messages.
newer, like when you have women? Because it is a chapter when you have a new intern who comes in and is like, you know, the reason
Mm,
why I applied is because of you.
mhm.
And it's like you see that it's a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking of that, like
Yeah.
that's a lot of pressure when
Yeah.
somebody. The reason why I wanted to do my current career or my current role, or if they see
Mhm.
you and have that moment where they feel like I can finally like unclench my shoulders and I can finally just let it out. Because a lot of
Mm.
because it's just like I see somebody who sees me, or they spoke the same language I spoke, or you said something that moved
Mm.
spoke to me.
I
So
love
it's like,
that.
how do you take that? Like, how do you like kind of feel about being that person for so many people?
It's hilarious, girl. Let me tell you, because I be looking at people like, are you serious? Like, because and I don't do that in the moment, but I think in my head, like, are you serious? Because I've I always look at people who are these people that we hold up as like whatever, as like they've done something so phenomenal to catapult them to that place, whatever. And while I've done something phenomenal to catapult me to that place, I've also done it being myself, which is very hard. And so I think that I feel good that like somebody can see that and be like, we can succeed. It's a lot harder. I ain't gonna lie. It's a lot of challenges. I ain't gonna lie. But the fact that they can see that, like they can see that this was a successful testimony that I have in the end, no matter what I went through. And so I think I feel good about it because I don't see myself, and this is not a put down, but I don't see myself as like this pedal, like this, like I feel like I'm a regular person who has done amazing things. And while when I say regular, meaning that I'm extraordinary, but like so is a lot of like Black women are extraordinary in many ways. Like we are, like you doing this podcast, like you know what I'm saying? Like we are extraordinary. So I feel like I'm thankful that I have that gift. You know what I mean? And I ask God, you know, I'm like, why did you give me this? Because sometimes I wish, to be honest, I could be one of these people being like, let me just go with my life and just, you know, give this
Mhm.
bad advice of like, well, you know, keep your head yeah, like, but it's just like, why are we gonna hurt them like that? Like, why? Like, it's not okay. It's not okay to hurt a next generation like that. So I think I feel good, but it's really laughable because I give my email out after every speaking gig. And for as much as like people, whatever, I only have like 3 to 4 people email me and like want to follow up and have conversations. But I know those 3 to 4 people are like they needed to be there that day. So I don't know. It's a gift, it's a blessing, and it's a gift to be able to just have this great prestigious thing and then just be able to also relate to people like on a chill level, I think. And that, you know, it's cost me some opportunities because I'm not flashy. You know what I mean? I'm just like I am who I am, but I'm okay. I'm okay with that. So yeah.
I love that. So your last event for the White House was the transition of power, right?
Um,
And that is probably one of like it goes down as like the biggest
um,
transition of powers I think we've ever like, and that partly due to social media because we
um,
all wanted to know what was in the Tiffany box. But how did you feel knowing how the country was going to be left, and did that move you to wanting to like work more in the community and do more, or did that just like have you feeling like, oh my God, we're doomed? Like, what did you go through?
I think it was a balance of both of those.
Okay.
I think that, you know, at the time at the end of the White House, I'll be honest, I felt like I had given all I could give. And so I was like, I'm not like everybody was, you know, having the marches and getting this, that, and the third. And when all that happened, I retreated because I was so tired. I was tired in a way that was like, you know, not bad. I was just tired because I had run a marathon for 8 years and then the marathon just stopped. And it's like the marathon stopped and all the spectators walked away. Then I was at the finish line, like, okay, well, I guess I'll go home. You know what I mean? Like that's how it felt. And so I think that when it was all over, I wanted to take a beat. Like I was like getting involved in politics or whatever right now. Like I can't like shout out to y'all, but like I don't have it. And so I took a break and I think that I had to reconnect and understand who I was outside of politics again. And that took a while. You know, you know, the country being in disarray when Trump came on was something to behold, but I also was like, you know, I'm a Black woman in America. Like that, this didn't surprise me. Like there wasn't. It surprised me that he got elected, but we was
Mhm.
eventually going to get somebody like him. You know what I mean? Like it was like it's politics. Like I wasn't naive to, how much Barack Obama changed and how much he didn't change, because because it's still a country that was founded on slavery, so I never was like naive. I think I was very much like, yeah, well, this tracks. I was like, this tracks. Like, I was never like, I'm so shocked. It's like, no, if you've been watching everything, especially that had happened, and the visceral reactions that having a black president and first lady did, you weren't really that shocked. And so I went back to the community, and I followed the leaders of the community. I didn't act like I was at the White House. I was like, no, like, let me go back to the community and find out where I can plug in as a participant, not as a I need to lead. No, I'm here to help. So I think I went back to the I'm here to help. How can I help you? Mode. So yeah.
Okay. And another thing about nostalgia, do you remember like how you felt like the very next day when you realized, oh snap, I don't got a job no more? Like you went from like the highest of the high. Because I'm like,
Oh,
you went from the highest of the high. When it comes to social popularity, like the girl who everybody
Child.
calls, you were that
Uh-huh.
girl. Like you
Uh-huh.
cultivated some of the most blackest events. And I think I want to
Yeah.
keep in that. I'm like, every black event we saw, that was her.
Yeah.
That was her.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it was just
Yeah.
go from doing that to being like, hey guys, I'm technically unemployed. And like, what do we do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did
I
you
will
feel?
I will say, and I have to give a nod to the first Black social secretary, Desiree Rogers, who she also like broke ground as far as like new events at the White House. So she was the first Obama social secretary, the first Black one. But what I will say is I felt um like if everything just stops, like you don't have two phones no more, you don't know like what's going on in the world, you go into unemployment, child, I filed for unemployment. Like it was like I think that I didn't realize, and this is just, I didn't realize what life was going to be like after. I didn't prepare for it because I worked till the last day. So there was
Mhm,
I looked for a job, I did interviews or networking. I didn't do none of that because we were so busy, doing events like 2, 3 times a day. And so I think that it felt weird, it felt weird to be like, I'm the popular girl in school. It's like, this is what I compare it to. It's like, when you're in college and like somebody Greek graduated and they still always come back for everything, be hanging out at the student centers, and you be like, didn't everybody got that one out of college? You be like, didn't you
mhm,
graduate? Like, what I mean? Didn't you graduate? And like you're still there trying to like relive your. So
mhm,
I think that for me, I had to get to a space where, and I'll be completely honest, politics was not my jam. Like it's not my thing. Like I wasn't going to be a government worker for life. I wasn't going to
mhm,
like, it didn't call me back. It still doesn't call me back. Like, there's nothing. So I think I had to know who I was again. And then I had to realize that like all these new friends that I made in Washington, child, I ain't hear from them people no more. Like what I'm saying? The party invites quickly slow down and this quickly, because
mhm.
everybody's like, she's not tied to the Obamas anymore. That's the access we wanted. And then I had
Mhm,
my true who were like, oh, I'm here, you still my girl, like whatever. So there was a lot of that. But I had to find myself again because it was weird not being as important as I was
mhm,
before. Because part of it was like I've always, I think from childhood and like just different issues and whatever, I've always craved to be important in somebody's eyes. Like, can I be
mhm.
important? And so I had to get over that. And then obviously then therapy helped me cure the like I gotta always be in the spotlight situation. So yeah.
Okay. So knowing all that you know now, in your opinion, what makes a good leader and what components make a good team?
Mm, that's great. A question. I would say what makes a good leader is somebody who can lead with authenticity for of who they are and who their team is. So it does no good. And I will say that again, I admit that I didn't know how to do this at first. And so there was a time where I was like in the back of my book, I apologized to like people who used to work for me and just say like there were times when you got caught up in me figuring out who I was, and I'm sorry for that. And I think that like what makes a good leader is somebody who can walk in truth but also encourage their team to walk in truth, trust them, stick up for them, you know what I mean, like stick up for them. Like there were times where I had to stick up for people who I knew probably wouldn't stick up for me and who I knew like wanted to be the proper way, but I was like, but this is not okay, so I'm going to say something, I'll take the fall. But I think that it's that, and then letting them grow. Like sometimes people grow beyond you. They leave your job, whatever, please go. Like, this is not personal. So I think that that makes a good leader. And then listening to everybody's ideas. Like, you know, a lot of ideas of what we did at the White House wasn't just on me. It wasn't just on, you know, Mrs. Obama. Like, we had a great team that had some really great ideas, you know what I mean? So like, you know, like we had one team member who was like, we should do, you know, a bacon bar at the end of the White House or whatever. And we told the Obamas, they were like, that's a great idea. Our last party, let's have all these bacons. Like, silly, but like it ended up being a hit. You know what I mean? So like, listen to ideas. I think that's what makes a good leader. And what makes a good team, I think, are just people who are on the same page to get like stuff done, you know, to get whatever the objective is done, to put
Mhm.
the ego aside a little bit, and help get things done, and to be willing to listen and learn from each other. We don't know all things. I don't know all things. If you ask me to do a podcast or come in and run the book club, I'd be like, I don't know how to do that. You know what I'm saying? You know how to do that. You know? So like, I'm gonna just come and take direction from you. I don't have
Mhm.
any ego on that. This your expertise. This is not mine. So we have to learn how to also be like, we don't know how to do all things, and that's okay.
Yeah, I got that. So after you did all your things at the White House, you literally go work at for the Ford Foundation. You go and you
Mm,
go at Harvard Fellowship, and then you start your own company at the like the beginning of the pandemic, 2020. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna just drop a
mhm,
little CEO
mhm.
behind that. So did you ever think, okay, maybe I need to slow it down, or do you feel like you have to keep going because that's your trajectory? And then also, do you feel like there are any more boxes to check?
Great question. I do. I think that I feel like I did have to slow it down, but I also had to pay bills. So I had to figure
Yeah.
out ways to get income. And so
Mhm.
it wasn't all the stuff I was doing. I wasn't trying to overachieve. I wasn't trying to
Mhm.
whatever. I was trying to find a career to pay bills.
Gotcha.
Because at the end of the day, that it comes down to that. And so everybody's like, you do so much. It's like, well, I got to figure out, like, I'm getting, you know, paid from speaking, and that's I'm saving for a home, you know, then I'm getting paid from the book, like I'm saving for retirement because I have my own business. Like, nobody feeds into it but me. So it's like all these things. It looks like it's, you know, doing too much. I'm really trying to find my fit, you know. And I think that the boxes that I still check, you know, I was so love. I've always wanted to live and work in another country, so that's still a box for me that I probably want to check. And I don't know what else. I think that's it for me. Really, is like somebody paying me to live and work somewhere, live and work somewhere else. Like, I don't want to just go on a visa. I need somebody to pay me to help me with my housing. And I think that's still a box I want to check. And I also haven't worked in entertainment full time. So I think about
Mhm.
working in entertainment somehow. So I think about that. But I mean, I feel like the White House was close enough. So yeah.
Okay, so these are flash questions. You just answer with the first answer that comes to your mind. Okay. Writing in the day or writing at night?
Day.
Okay. Working at the White House or starting your own company?
Working at the White House.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Paperback or hardcover?
Mm, you asking some hard questions. I'm gonna say paperback. Paperback. I'm gonna say paperback.
Girlfriends or insecure?
Insecure.
Okay. Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr.?
That ain't right. You ain't right. You ain't right. I'll say, you know what? I'll say Martin Luther King Jr. because we got the same birthday. So that's gonna get
Okay.
me out of that. So yeah.
Is it Uchi Wally or is it one mic?
One mic.
Okay. And
One
who is
mic.
Deesha Dyer? And who is Deesha Dyer? Last question.
Deesha Dyer is an extremely proud Black woman, happy to be in community with other Black women. I am a writer. I am an author. I am all things that I don't even know yet. So I'm excited. I'm curious.
I love that. More things that I don't even know yet. I like that.
I don't
I
even
like
know yet, girl. I don't even know. And I think that's the thing is like all that I did, I like look at everything. I'm like, I know I was gonna do all that. So like,
that.
what's up next? And I want Black women to leave that curiosity, not the insecurity. Like, what there's so much I can do. What's next? And like you're just curious. I think I'm just curious. Like even this book, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like it's fun. it's
Let's do
going,
it.
you know. So yeah, let's
Mhm.
do it. Let's do it. Yeah.
Well, I want to say congratulations and let people know where they can find you and your work. I mean, because we have the book coming out this month, and that's going to be
Yes.
like the world's going to be shaking.
I know. I know. Hopefully they'll have a good reaction. But they can find my work and me at DeeshaDyer.com. Just DeeshaDyer.com. And then my Instagram is DDyer267, DEEDYER267. So that's where people can find me, links for the book, anywhere where you buy books. We love to see it. Black women, we need more people supporting all of our work in all different arenas, fantasy, comic, romance, all that, everything. So anytime you can buy and support Black authors, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I got one question. What was your biggest
Yes.
flex as working at the White House? You got to let us know a big flex that you be like, I'm going to do this because I got this badge and Obama know my name.
Oh, my biggest flex. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. My biggest flex. I can't even tell you. I would say this book is a flex, but I think I don't know. I think one of my biggest flexes is like being on the phone with like Beyonce and Prince's teams at the White House and being like, oh my gosh, like really with Prince, because I'm an 80s kid. I was like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Okay, Deesha, like, okay. Like, I was like, you got a job. You know what I mean? Like, you got a job. So I would say that, and I would say, traveling around the country and being like, I represent the president. I represent the first lady, and being able to say that in embassies and, to different people overseas. It's just like, they're like, you do? I'm like, yep, that's me. That's me with the nose ring and everything. That's me. So yeah.
That is a flex. Cause I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, hello, Beyonce's people. I mean, hello. I would be like, I wouldn't even know what to say.
Right. And the thing is, like, you gotta be perfect. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm just like trying to be professional, but also being like not like, you know what I mean? You don't know what to say. I mean, especially with Prince, I was like, I don't even know. Like, I don't. And then like when he came to do the event, he was like standing in front of me, like getting. I had to brief and I was just like, I'm briefing the president, first lady, and Prince. Like, what? Like, Jesus, like, is this? And I would look around like, Jesus, like, is this like me? I would be like me, the girl from Philly. Like, is there nobody else? like y'all sure? Okay, this is what we doing. It's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah.
Thank you so much, DC.
Thank you so much. Oh no, thank you.